Monsieur Wave.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta do de. Luta mo nulo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis. Hello?
Bissel mu fine.
What?
Bissel mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave acts in Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. At Wave, Bissel mu fine. Wave, your money is yours.
Jar Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
In the Gambia, we all move to different paces. Time is money, convenience is power, and now both are in your hands. No more long lines, no more late payments, no more missed chances, not anymore. Because now the Gambia has its own super app, Zap. One app, one tap, endless convenience. Send money instantly, pay your bills in seconds, shop without borders, pay your rides, order your meal, buy your ticket, deposit and withdraw money for absolutely free. No extra charges, no hidden fees, only on Zap Super App. This is not just convenience. This is confidence. This is the future in your hands. And the best part, Zap is born right here. Built for us, designed for every Gambian home, every Gambian dream. So don't wait in the past. Step into the future. Download Zap today on App Store and Play Store and enjoy endless free services. Call us today on our toll-free number 1666 or on 260-0001. Zap, all in one, all for you. Tap in, zap in.
On Monday, the 1st of December 2025, you're with Coffee Time with Peter Gomez. Thanks for joining us. And for this second hour, we are looking at one of the most pressing issues confronting the Gambia since 2017, and that is corruption. From allegations of mismanagement to questions of accountability, the borough administration has struggled to shake off the perception of corruption remaining entrenched in public life in this country. And joining us now is Ousainou Bobb. Ousainou is a spokesman of the APP-SOBEYA movement. He's a well-known anti-corruption activist. And for the next hour or so, we'll explore with him the roots of corruption in the Gambia, its impact on governance and development, and what reforms are needed to restore public trust. Ousainou, good to have you.
Thank you, Peter, for having me.
You know, we've been interacting for
a long time.
Almost a year.
Almost
year
a
and
year.
Half,
yes,
huh?
definitely.
Over Esam by file without actually ever,
yes.
Meeting in person.
Exactly.
But you know, the Wolofs have a saying, Lujot.
Yomba.
Absolutely. So there you are today.
Exactly. I'm all the time messaging like, Uncle Peter, can we have Esa on the show?
Yeah. Every time I meet Esa, he says to me, well, whenever you need me, just call me. You have my contact. I said yes. But, I follow protocol.
Definitely.
We are from the old guard. If somebody says, well, go through Ousainou whenever you need me, keep the first word. Always go through Ousainou.
Definitely.
All right.
Definitely.
I could be with Esa, but I would never say to him, can you come on the next program? I'll have to call Ousainou and say, well, can I have Esa by file?
Exactly.
But listen, let's put Esa by file aside. I know that is very difficult because as spokesman of APP-SOBEYA, you must, make reference to him occasionally. Let's talk about you first and your activism in the area of anti-corruption. How did it begin?
Well, it is a long journey and very diverse for that matter. But I think it borns out of desire to help my community because my activism started after my high school. I was the head boy, and I've always been a very strong-headed person in Farafenni Senior Secondary School.
Okay. I thought you went to the wrong high school. There's only one wrong high school, by the way, in the Gambia.
Right.
Don't mention the name.
Yeah, so I've always been the type that would root out for the underdog. Fight for social justice, fight for things that matters to the students. And I can remember leading a protest in high school because we were unhappy about series of things, and a student of ours.
What year was that when you led this protest?
Well, that was in 2005 and 6. Then we had a principal.
You dared the dictator.
Well, yes. Then we had a principal called Mr. Morang. I think the last I heard of him, he was the principal of Muslim High School.
Okay.
And we had a student, Babukar Sanyang, who was expelled when we were about to sit our examination. So, I was like, if he doesn't come back, none of us is going to sit this exam. And from there, we proceeded to GTTI, young at that time. All our intention was, I want to travel. Like, education was never the priority. And my brother Esa said to me, like, if you want to come to Germany...
Not Esa by far?
No, Esa Bobb.
All right. we need to make that very clear because he's the spokesman of Esa by far.
No, definitely Esa Bobb. So I was like, look, I'll finish high school and I want to come to Europe. I want to drive a big car. I want to, travel. And he's like, well, you need to earn skills. You need to go to GTTI. It was never an intention to go and study engineering or anything. So I went to GTTI, enrolled in the electrical department, and went into student politics, became the secretary general. I shared the same executive with my brother Amadou Ka. He was our Tabahreumi. He was our treasurer, and he has always been very honest since I knew him. And we brought about a lot of financial transparency in terms of student funding and student finance. I think during our time, we managed to sponsor 15 students out of the student funds. But again, did a lot of revolution in GTTI. It was a very contentious issue with Fatou Mbaye, the then director of GTTI, in terms of student programs and student activities. So I can remember going to Yaya Jammeh then, and I'm like, we need a boss.
You met Yaya Jammeh?
Yes.
Ah.
I was like,
how was that meeting arranged?
It was okay, but I've always been...
But how did you come to, stand in front of Yaya Jammeh?
Well, we got the information that school buses were imported and they were going to be given to students, and GTTI's name was not on the list. So we've managed to get an appointment. So went to him and I was like, we need a bus. And he gave us a key, just like that.
Give you the keys to a bus?
Yes, so,
And how did you manage a driver?
Well, a military personnel drive the vehicle to, all the students were there celebrating. So we got to GTTI. But it was one of the key things that led me into student politics in GTTI was my initial experience in the engineering department. In my class, there were 150 students, and we share a very small class. For the first 3 months, I wasn't even given a screwdriver, because whenever we have practicals, you have all the students surrounding the board. Only 1 or 2 would be able to do a hands-on thing because there was not enough materials and there were not enough spaces. And I went to the engineering students and I'm like, you guys do understand that by the time we finish our program, none of us would know anything.
Well, you know theory.
Theory, but like in practical, it would be exactly.
Because you didn't have the tools.
The tools to do that. So, and then start talking to students, start campaigning that we need to change this. The numbers of students being enrolled has to be reduced, or resources have to be improved so that everyone would have hands-on practical experience while also doing the theory. It was also a very good experience in terms of youth networking, and I was young at that particular time. And after my high school, I've started working for MRC. After GTTI, I was lucky to be employed by MRC as a DSS field worker and
DSS?
Demographic Surveillance System. Okay. And that exposed me to the interior of the country, and I fall in love with it. And it makes me reflect on the reality of rural Gambia, the kindness of the people, the humility of the people despite their limited in resources. They are willing to share. And from there, I've just adopted this notion of giving back to my community. And everything I had since then, I've always shared with my community. And that's led to the foundation that I had and all the charity works that I do in the Gambia. And I've worked for MRC from 2009 to 13, and NAWEC was like, well, I had a close mutual friend of mine, and he says to me, well, you studied electrical in GTTI, why not come and work for NAWEC? There is a program they're rolling out right now. You can have an additional 1 year of further studies. So I was like, that's a good idea. So I went into NAWEC and started studying mechanical engineering at the Aircraft Training School. Then, went into politics to get Yaya Jammeh out, and all those activisms. Immediately Yaya was out, then all the youths within my constituency, Elias, they were like, Bob, this is the right time to get a youth parliament representation. I'm like, well, Bob doesn't have the money. But if we want to come together, we can give it a shot. So we come together, and I decided to contest as an independent candidate, which it's very interesting how we did it. None of us had the money. So we will go to campaign, meet at the petrol station, contribute money, fuel our cars, and then go out and speak to the people. The intention was, one, to bring civic awareness. But again, I think politics, it's a calling. And the calling for me at that particular time was what I experienced in rural Gambia. There were no higher education or tertiary institution. So there was a drift of rural-urban migrations. And a lot of brilliant young women and brilliant young men end up not coming to the combos because they couldn't find a guidance. So their high school journey or educational journey ended the moment they finished education in their region.
So they would, achieve the mark for high school education.
Yes.
But because high schools were not available in their own localities, and because they couldn't find a host. In the greater Banjul area,
yep,
their education had to stop there.
Especially the younger girls. And I was like, Farafenni deserve a tertiary institution. So we need to advocate for this. And that was the platform on which we ran. And when we ran into that, I was 29 then, 29 years old. And this was the first...
Older than when Yaya Jammeh and friends took over this country as well. Yeah.
Well, this was the first time also a young man was running in Eliasa. But again, credit to, the good elders in Eliasa. And they had a very good relations with my dad. And when I went to all of them, I was like, I want to run for an independent. They all supported me, despite the fact that they all belong to different political parties. But I could feel their protection and guidance while I was doing it. So we went through the campaign process. So what we normally do, we will go into a village, sit everyone down, and then have a question and response answers. Do you know why you're voting for a parliament member? Do you know what are the expectations? And it becomes a civic awareness campaign. And I think it created a lot of problems for them at that particular time because they've injected a lot of money into Eliasa to win the elections. But the message resonates, and I always reference this story. We had this guy who was our drummer, Sun Sabat Kadbe.
Okay.
Jacob. And initially it was like 700 a day. At the end of the day, they know them meeting, they will give him money. At the to meeting money, I'm now 600. I'm the new boy like campaign. So that was the kind of... It was
like crowdfunding, eh?
Exactly. So that was the kind of messaging that we carried with us. And that was the type of campaign that we ran through. And it earns us a lot of respect and admirations for everyone because I believe I've always been very respectful, but I've always been very truthful and direct also in my communication.
I'm still missing one thing. How all this experience led you to now start campaigning against corruption. Where did you see or felt corruption, throughout this experience?
Right. So shortly after that, I've started doing a lot of borehole projects through different... I'm giving you the backup story to where I am now.
Yeah.
So through mutual funding partners from Turkey, from Europe, and from the US, I went to Istanbul for a conference, met these amazing people that I started networking with.
When you were with which institution?
Then I was just working for NAWEC. After election, I went back to working for NAWEC.
So you were with NAWEC?
Yeah, exactly. So I went to Istanbul. It was a private funded conference. So I went there. I think it has to do with youth-related activities. So I've met Yunus and the team. So we became very good friends.
Who's Yunus?
Yunus is a friend of mine. He's Turkish German. And through him, we were able to invest more than $25 million is in terms of social development projects, ranging from renovating madrasas and schools, providing beddings and livable accommodations for all the madrasas and, schools. I've built a mosque in Farafenye. I've done a lot of borehole projects. And one of the key things I experienced while working with MRC was people were drinking from open well. And I saw this technology.
I did that, and I'm still here.
I saw this technology.
So what's wrong with drinking from open wells?
Well, we have to evolve and have to take health more seriously to filter water. So this technology in Amsterdam, where they have this simple mechanism. Mm-hmm. It's just like a bicycle pump, but you can have a mini borehole. It doesn't require electricity or solar to be able to get access to groundwater. So we've installed 800 of those across the country. Now, that leads me into studying politics and corruption. Mm-hmm. And the transition is, after all that I have gone through, I was like, look, if I am going to bullshit people about politics, I at least have to go and get the knowledge.
Sorry for the language. Let's say BS.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what can I do different? If I want to go into politics and I actually want to come up with policies that's going to be beneficial to the Gambian people, I need to go and study it. So I went to the UK and I studied philosophy, politics, and ethics because to me, the ethical part was the most important part for me. So during my course of studying with the University of Brighton for my undergrad, I've got involved with the humanity programs, and we started looking at corruption cases in the UK, corruption cases in Asia, corruption cases in Africa, and I got fascinated. But most importantly also, I've always been an avid reader of anthropology because I want to understand my history. I want to understand from where I come from. So I've read, say, Anti-Job as early as I was in high school, to understand my origin, to understand my blackness, and I've always been very proud of it. So whilst doing that, and after my graduation, my supervisor said to me, why not just continue your career in, corruption? And Sussex is just by the corner, which is the #1 university for anti-corruption in the world. So I enrolled with the
University of Sussex.
Yes, it is ranked as #1 for anti-corruption studies. So the CSC department, we are responsible for major anti-corruption policies and law throughout the world, and in setting up commissions, in advising commissions, and in doing research for other works.
I'll pop in one day just to find that, because usually when I'm in London, I stay at Crawley, which is not very far away.
Definitely. Right, so enrolled in Sussex and started working for Basic Global whilst I was doing my master's in corruption and governance. And we did some few projects in Nigeria and Uganda. But corruption is such a complex and a nuanced topic. Even with academic, there are so many contentious and contending theories. And what anti-corruption agents or anti-corruption advocates would always say is, this is what the theory says, but this is what the realities are. And it would be very difficult to theorize the realities because societal difference and, geographical locations, culture, and all those things, they are completely different. So they give you the tools. This is what the theory said. And the theory would help you to develop the tools to address the realities based on the different geographical locations. And, I've written so many papers regarding corruption, but most importantly also in the African context, especially the Gambian context. My research area has mostly been focused on the local norms, the social norms.
Well, let's listen. Let's expand on that. Paint a picture for us of how corruption has evolved in this country, especially since 2017.
Right. So the thing about corruption, there is a famous theory which was proposed by Robert Kilgard in 1988.
Who is it?
Robert Kilgard is a famous anti-corruption advocate and a writer.
American? Englishman?
English, probably, yeah. So Kilgard says corruption, he brought out a formula that most anti-corruption agencies would use, to theorize corruption. And the formula is corruption equals to monopoly plus discretion minus accountability.
Okay, monopoly plus discretion
minus accountability. Right. A lot of academics also did find faults in such a theory, but that would be interesting to dive into. Again, if we want to apply that in the context of the Gambia, and we look at the principal agent theory, and during the time of Yaya and during the time of Barrow, that would help us understand the level of corruption and the perception of corruption.
That's a good time. I mean,
Now,
we can make reference to Jamie because he was supposed to have been back here by midnight last night, and just as people who kept warning these Ashobi buyers and whatever, the guy is not coming. They kept saying, well, he was coming. He's not here.
Right.
Won't be here for a very long time. So let's talk about him behind his back.
Right. So let's first look at Jame and apply the principal agent theory. So what the principal agent theory is proposing, it's like if you have a system where the principal, which is the executive, have principle, then the agents would fall in line. Because if you look at the social aspect or the sociology aspect of it, they're like human beings are very calculative. We calculate the risk versus the cost of our actions, especially when it comes to corruption. Now, the agent will always calculate the risk versus cost benefit. If I engage in a corrupt practice, and the principal have principle, then the risk is higher than the reward. Now, in the context of Yaya, we all knew he was the only one allowed to, right, embezzle and all those things. Right, so the agents, which is the state apparatus, the workers, they were very much careful as to the level of embezzlement because Yaya would put you in front of the TV on Friday and humiliate you. So the risk associated with corruption was higher. Not fully giving him credit as a principle that has principle because the principle was...
He wasn't anti-corruption.
Exactly.
He wasn't.
But he was the only one allowed to be corrupt.
To the core. Only he
can be corrupt.
Wanted to be the only person allowed to be corrupt in the whole of the Gambia.
Exactly. Okay. So now you have Barrow. And, because the way civil services work, and this theory is born out of, Western governance system because the entire world is, Western-centric in terms of academic, in terms of governance and all those things. So you have the principal, which is the executive, and then you have the agents. Now, this is why anti-corruption practitioners have problems with sensationalizing corruption. You risk the effect of having a cynical cycle the more corruption is exposed. Now, the agent would be like, the principal is corrupt, and the principal doesn't have any principles. Now, the agent finally realized that there is much more reward in being corrupt than the risk associated with it. And this is what we've been witnessing since 2017, because the reward of engaging in a corrupt practice, be it bribery, be it whatever it is, it has proven to be much more rewarding because we have seen people that have joined government or went into government from 2017 to now. We've, heard of them having mansions, have heard of them, going on luxury travels and all those things. And still now, there is no risk associated with that. So this is the cycle that Gambia is in right now. And I am the type of advocate that do not take the approach of we go to, they call it the catcher, which is go after the bad guy. Like there is a bad apple, we pluck out the bad apple. The way I do my studies and the way I do my research in terms of social policies is to get to the genealogy, get to the root cause of it and understand why this is even taking place in the first instance. Now, Gambia is at a very precarious stage at this particular moment because the perception is so high, so much so high that there is this notion that even if I do not do it, Peter is doing it or Bo is doing it. So you are tempted to do it.
So why bother?
Exactly. And this is quite dangerous. But again, Peter, to give your listeners some substance to understand also, it might be important to look at it at two different angles. We look at the executive because, again, corruption studies and all anti-corruption agencies, they are geared towards the public official because if you look at Transparency International, their definition is the most widely cited definition of corruption, which is the abuse of entrusted power by public officials for private gain. Again, but in the context of the Sahelian region or in the context of Africa, that abuse could also come from the bottom going towards up, because writers like Sade and Coop have argued for a very long time that corruption can also be an effective ends to mean. And then the analogy they give, it's, look, I had that experience in Banjul yesterday whilst I was crossing over the ferry.
Oh.
I came over.
Real life experience.
Yes, but these are daily occurrence. But I can, use that as a reference. So I came to Bara, joined the queue, follow it like everyone else. Again, there was two other vehicles that came in, speak to the guy that was holding the gate, give them some money that I could actually see, and the gate was wide open for them.
Now when they, either when they demand money from you, either through extortion or whatever, they don't hide it.
Right.
Gone are the days of Silo Bula. Get off the road. Let's go into some,
exactly.
Hideout.
Right. So the gate were widely open for them to go through. Now, in that situation, what do I do? Because the question of morality might not be put in place, because corruption, it started from the study of morality since the ancient time. Like, in the biblical time, corruption, it's the immorality of the soul and all those things. Again, so if I were to have a very important and urgent mission in Banjul that I needed to come, so I might be tempted to pay. Because again, I do understand that paying that fee would enable me to access the service faster and quicker.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? Right. So sometimes the people also participate in corruption without actually knowing it. But in the context of Gambia, most of the corruption that we encounter daily at the lower level, people do not even consider it as corruption, bribery, because it stems out from our language. Again, if I should ask you now, what is the local language, what is the local word for bribery in the local language, what would you say?
Duku.
Duku.
Yeah.
And then ger in Wolof.
Yeah.
Right. How often do you use that phrase when you have your daily conversations?
Not very often.
Exactly.
Not very often.